Hey, intermediate algebra students. All right, now we are getting into factoring quadratics intro. And what you're going to be getting used to now are diamond and rectangle problems. So they're going to give you a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation always starts with an x squared term, and then it usually has a middle term, and then it always has a constant at the end. So it always has this one, it always has this one, and it usually has this one. We will be getting into special cases where that doesn't exist, but typically it is there. Now, for quadratics, when we put this together, I want you to understand something. We have this first term here, we call that the A term. We have the second term here, which we call the B term, and we have this third term here, it should only make sense, we call that the C term, okay? Now, when we put together this, we do what's called a diamond and rectangle. So you're literally going to draw a diamond and a rectangle, and you're going to split that diamond into 4 places, and you're going to split that rectangle into 4. Now, in that diamond, we need to fill in this top box. In order to do that, we take our A term right here, and we multiply it by our C term. So what is 20 times x squared? And I know you're thinking, what? It's just 20x squared. It's not difficult, guys. 20x squared. If there's no numbers in there, you just multiply them together, combine them that way. And then down here, your B term goes down here. So our B term in this case is the negative 9x. So we put a negative 9x right there. Then over in the rectangle, the A term goes in this box, which is your x squared. And your C term, positive 20, goes in this box right here. You've now done the setup for the problem, which will make this much easier to do. You have been doing diamond problems for quite some time, and they've been preparing you for this moment in order to factor quadratics. You need to think of two numbers right here that will multiply together and will equal 20x squared, but at the same time, when you add them together, will equal negative 9x. Well, you know in order to get a positive, you need to have either a positive times a positive, but two positives will not add up to a negative, or you need a negative times a negative to equal this positive. And a negative plus a negative would create a bigger negative. So what are two numbers that multiply to make 20 that also add up to make negative 9? You probably would come up with negative 4x and negative 5x. A negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20, while negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9. Then, whatever you come up with for these two, you need to take those two and plug them in over here. They could go negative 4x here, negative 5x here, or you could switch them around, and it does not matter. It doesn't change the answer. Now, we need to do what's called factoring. Okay, we need to factor, find out what they have in common. And whenever you have negatives here, always take your negatives out first. So for example, I'm going to deal with these two. What is the biggest number they have in common? And you'd probably say, well, they have a 5 in common. And I would agree with you. But because we want to get that negative out of this term, we're going to take a negative out of both terms. So we're going to take a negative 5 out of there. When I take this negative 5 out of here, negative 5 times negative 4 would equal 20. So this really becomes a negative at that point. When you take the negative here and the negative out of here, this term down here becomes a negative, meaning when I have a negative 4 here and a negative 4x here, what do these two have in common? They both have a negative 4 in common. Now that you have that out, these two terms don't have a number in common. Well, they have a 1 in common. They always have a 1 in common. But they actually have a variable in common. They both have an x term, so we'll pull an x out of them. And these two here also have an x in common, so we'll pull that out. You just kind of did the opposite of multiplying. Remember before when you took this x times this x equals this x squared? Well, you just reversed the process. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. You just reverse the process. Oh, negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. There you go. And x times negative 5 equals negative 5x. It's a nice way of verifying you did this correct. Now, you've done all the work. Our factors of this is a x minus 4 and an x minus 5. So in our factors, we plug those two right in there and put them in parentheses because, again, we're taking this times this right here. So in parentheses, x minus 4, x minus 5. Let's do one more, but we'll do it quicker this time. So they gave us another problem right here we're going to do. So First step here, here's the quadratic we're factoring. They've already given us one answer, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change what we do. We're going to take this quadratic and we're going to factor it. So the first thing is diamonds and rectangles. So I'm going to set up my diamonds and rectangles. You'll notice I've already taken my a times c term. 10 times x squared is 10x squared. My b term I've already put down here. I took my a term, I put it right up here, which is x squared, and I took my c term, which is 10, put it right there. Now I got to think of two numbers that multiply to make a positive 10x, but add together to make a negative 7x. So I need either two positives or two negatives, and you probably got it by now. It should be a negative 5x and a negative 2x. Those two negatives would create a positive 10x squared, and those two negatives would add up to a negative 7x. We will then take these two terms here, and we'll plug them into these two spots. Again, it doesn't matter which one they go to. First thing, let's get rid of the negatives. We're going to get rid of the negatives here for negative 2. We're going to get rid of then these two negatives to get the negative 5. Now everything's positive. What do these two have in common? Well, they have an x term in common. Where is it? There it is. And what do these two have in common? They also have an x term in common. You will notice that this x minus 5 right here matches this x minus 5. So that was the width of it, which means the length of this is this one down here, or x minus 2. So we would just simply type in x minus 2 as our answer right there. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. We will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.